speedrunning, a series of behemoths gather together as a community to complete a game as fast as possible. One of these games are Mr. Krabs overdoses on ketamine and dies. This speedrun started with record holders such as Blurry Name and Abysmal, both clipping through this specific wall to grab the key. Then later, Penguin Zero revolutionized this game's speedrun by discovering a new way to warp directly into the building from spawn, and in the process getting a world record. From there, many runners took to the task of beating the speedrun, and ultimately, they succeeded. As more records were set, the game started to become less and less popular. This left a small handful of players, and a record set by Drippiin. This record hasn't been beaten in nearly 1.5 years. Okay, so when Penguin Zero first did his initial world record, it didn't look like that it was super consistent, just because I couldn't exactly tell if he used slow mode or not. So I think that what he was trying to do was just do like a regular launch, that he would launch into the air, and then like his boat would fly through the air and through the building, but then he got the warp, luckily. And I don't think he went to slow mode, so I think he just got like ridiculously lucky and just somehow just clicked it and then just went straight into the building. So after runners started to optimize it and find like more of a consistent way to get like a decent launch, at least to have a chance of getting into the building, they started to beat the record. And then I watched Penguin Zero make videos on it like a long time ago, but I wasn't that interested in it before. But a few months ago, I started to gain interest and decided that I was going to start trying to speedrun it. And after about a month of playing, I managed to get a run in the top 10. But after doing a bit of research and investigation, there are 3 pretty big things that I noticed. So nowadays, to get a good run, you have to be very fast when launching the boat. So you can't like be at the boat launch for very long. So usually what I like to do, and I think what other people do for watching, is they click space and then they click slow mode immediately, because if you go in slow mode and then space, it makes you a little bit slower. So that's what made me very confused when I watched this video of Drippiin's old thing, and he clicked slow mode before he clicked space, and he had a much slower initial run, but he was still able to grab the key at around 6, and he had a sub 17 run. And on top of that, he didn't have an absolutely flawless gauntlet. I mean, it was mostly fine, but I'd say like 90% flawless, but like there was still like a few tiny hiccups here and there, which is why it surprised me where runs like mine, where mine was only, so mine was only 400 milliseconds better, so it was like only like less than half a second better. But then when I looked at it, like I said, like his launch was a little bit slower in the beginning, but my launch was like eons faster there. And I still grabbed the key at 6. So that was like one thing that was like very confusing to me. How like I grabbed the key at 6 just like he did, but I had like a way faster launch in like every way possible. So I did a little bit of investigation. Then I noticed that in his most recent world record run, which is still set today, if you looked closely, I kind of noticed, wait a minute, it looked like that he spawned very close to the rock there. Because, you know, usually like you jump over the rock, so when he spawned immediately, I was like, wait a minute, it looked like he spawned very close to the rock. And like I kind of noticed that because like as soon as I started the video, it's like he was able to jump over the rock way faster than I see anyone else do. And when I went to any other run on the list, I could see that like they were like noticeably farther away when they started. So if I go over here, you can see here when he starts. This is a number 3 run right now. You can see right here, he's way farther away. So like obviously this isn't like the first frame, but like this is like pretty close enough. So if I go back to this one, I mean that's noticeably closer. I can just, if I go in full screen or something, like that's noticeably closer. Like if you just look, one thing that I looked at in the beginning, because I was a little bit like confused, like I wasn't 100% sure if he spawned closer to the rock here or not. So one thing I did was I looked at the time that they jumped over the rock and the time that they touched the boat. He's over here, he jumps over the boat at around 2:12, and then he grabs the boat at around 3:50. And then if you go to his Drippiin's, he starts here. And like just look at that. Like compared to that, like he's already at the rock immediately. So this guy jumped over the rock at 230 about. And Drippiin jumped over the rock at 173. And even though like his wasn't like the most optimized run in the world, there's no way that it would be that much of a difference. 230 versus 173. And like even just looking at that, I mean, you can just noticeably see, like, I mean, you can just see, like, just from the eye test, just looking at it, like, he looks like he's starting way farther away. So I investigated more into it, and I also saw that Drippiin was able to wrap around the boat and then touch the other side of it at 290. This is like the even bigger one for me. Like his specific launching strategy is that he goes around it and wraps around this corner of the boat and then grabs it. Random, look where he's at 290. This is where he's at 290, right? And he's able to, and he grabs the boat at 334. And I'm random, you can see I'm random. He doesn't even wrap around the boat as much as Drippiin does. Like he goes like kind of on the corner of the boat. So he didn't even wrap around it as much as Drippiin did, and he still wasn't able to get there at 290 like Drippiin did. So that was another thing that got my attention. And I went back to my run to see where I grabbed the boat, and I also grabbed it at around 330 or so. And at 290, which is where Drippiin grabbed the boat, Drippiin is like right here. I mean, I'm right here at 290, while Drippiin is already on the other side of the boat grabbing it. So I was like very confused, like how he seemed to be able to spawn closer to the boat. Another thing I noticed was that while most other runners have their, like they have like an auto splitter, because when you click play, the auto splitter starts and the game doesn't actually show up until like a little bit after you press play. Like it doesn't show up immediately. So like the auto splitter starts and then the game shows up. So he presses play and then the game shows up. So one thing that I noticed was for him, he had his thing set an entire second after the game started to register it. This frame right here is crab stand, and the run starts the first frame after crab stand. So I noticed that he had his at 1 second, and in his old record he also had it at like around 1 second, almost 2 seconds. But one thing that I noticed was almost every other runner, if they had an auto splitter, including me, if they had an auto splitter that had like a minus thing there, it usually started at around minus 20 seconds. So that meant that his game loaded for longer before it actually started, which I thought maybe had something to do with it also. So I tucked in and buttoned up my shirt and rolled my shoulders back and gathered the courage to march to the principal's office and make my proposal to the Ketamine Council, which is pretty much just that, hey, this is a kind of weird thing. Maybe look at it, I don't know. I knew that the game was like pretty inconsistent and wasn't like the most polished thing the world has ever seen, so I was sure that Drippiin wasn't hacking or anything like that. Now you'll notice that everyone's name except mine in the Discord server name is censored. This is of course standard protocol, because if any of the identities of the elders got released, it would be doomsday as we know it for our world. The fabric of reality as we know it would be put to shambles. These are the few binds that hold our reality and universe together, so it is extremely important that their identities stay away from the public's eyes at all costs. Anyway, I didn't think anyone would see it, but a few days later, a few of the tribe's most respected elders actually gave it the light of day, which surprised me. I immediately went on to do like a 50,000-year rant, and all of this ruckus was able to get the attention of another tribe elder. And then one of the elders just like spit in my face and put me to the ground, as he just said that the camera angle made him look closer. I had to bite my tongue so I wouldn't be banished from the tribe for life, but deep down I knew that my suspicions were true. And later I was just befuddled, just absolutely gobsmacked to see that the council like launched like a full-length investigation on this topic, as one of them actually went out of their way to count each and every individual pixel of the tile that you spawn next to prove my case right. As you can see with this graphic of me and most other people, like pretty much every other person that I ever see do a run besides Drippiin, start at around this tile here, 3.77, or like the 4 area here. And then you can see Drippiin isn't even in the 4 area. He just starts immediately at 3 at tile 2.83. After calculating the amount of time that it took to cross each tile, he came up with the conclusion that Drippiin had about a 0.423 second advantage above me and most other people I saw, or about almost a full tile ahead. And he pretty much concluded with the fact that there wasn't like an 100% accurate way to time runs, just because people's machines work differently and people's machines load the game at different speeds. It came up with a few solutions to the problem, but they pretty much just came back to the fact that no one cares and the game is dead, which is pretty much true. Looking back, what I think happened is that, like, usually when people start the game, like, usually someone's game would start like a lot earlier than his, so I think usually my game would start like around here. So I think like outside of the screen he's like moving forward, but you can't actually see it until here. So like I think he actually is starting back at the normal tile or whatever, but the game just isn't showing it because his game is loading faster, because that's just how his game works. So he's not cheating or anything. I think the game is just weird like that. But that was only version 1.21 of the game. There's a version called 1.22 that is a different version of the game that pretty much no one likes and plays at all, and the any percent record is way lower than anything else at 1.21. The record is only 21 seconds. I could literally get that in my sleep, and the launch that he took literally took like 5,000 years anyway, so this record would just be easy for the taking. Wait a minute.